Any readout from closed session, council?
Thank you. Make sure we're on here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The City Council did meet in closed session prior to tonight's meeting to get direction in the case of Maldonado versus City of Ripon et al. Council was given direction by the City Council, and no further reportable action is taken.
Great, thank you. Daniel, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, yeah. Please stay standing for the invocation. Thank you.
Please join me as I pray. Dear God, your greatness is evidence in so much of life. We see your love in our relationships and friendships. We sense your joy in the times of the goodness we see. We sense your goodness in the love that so many showed to our city on April 29 for Love Ripon. We love our city and praise you for the joy we have for being part of this great community. Forgive us the times we squander these great gifts we've received from you. We also pray for those who offer leadership to our city. We thank you for our mayor, for our city council, for all who work to make our city function well. Grant each one what they need to do the work for which they've been appointed. Grant them wisdom to govern effectively with understanding and goodwill. Grant them insight to weigh what is best and the character to act accordingly. Grant them courage to do what's right and the humility to give way when wrong. And grant them the harmony to work together even when there's honest disagreement, understanding their role as stewards of your authority. Bless them in today's agenda. Renew us all with the strength of your presence as we work to build Ripon into a community of respect and joy. We ask this confident in your goodness and love as shown in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Jake Parks.
Here.
Leo Zuber.
Here.
Vice Mayor Michael Restusha.
Present.
Mayor Dean Euchre.
Okay. Public discussion. This is the time for people in the audience. If you have something that's not on the agenda, please come up, state your name and address. Seeing nobody. Approval of the minutes of April 11th.
I move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second.
You got to call a vote.
We have a motion second. Are you going to?
Yeah, I thought we were doing it up top there.
Okay.
I can't remember this. What do we do now?
Someone's got to set the vote up.
I don't see a place.
My vote's
Yeah, my vote's grayed out.
grayed out.
He's not able to vote. He's not the.
Okay, let's go verbal. We have a motion. We have a second. Oh, there you go.
Leo, you move.
We have a.
Yes. So now what?
You hit mover.
Now I know why Dean didn't show up tonight. It's beautiful.
Second.
Did I vote?
Not yet.
Oh.
Waiting for
Now
you.
I got it.
There you go. Okay. Passes 4-0. That's on the easy thing. Okay. Let's see here. That was approval of the minutes. Approval of the agenda as posted or amended.
This is where we pull items, right? Okay. I have 4. You ready for this, Tricia?
Yes,
1.2D, 1.2E, 1.2G, and 1.3D.
And I'm going to pull 1.3F and 1.3G. G.
F and G. Last two.
F and G.
We're also pointing multi.
Anybody else have anything to pull?
We're also pointing multimodal on.
Okay. Jake, did you, or you?
So we're pulling, well, actually Kevin is, I think it's
Yeah,
1.3E.
1.3E?
Yeah.
He did?
No, I did F and G.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, I didn't hear you. I apologize.
But E, we're pulling not to do anything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
We're tabling 1.3E?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we meet, okay. Anybody else?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second.
Oh, we gotta wait for a
Oh,
little.
now we gotta wait.
Okay, that's
Think.
fine.
Here we go.
Yeah,
So there you go.
we have a motion, we have a
Make your
second.
mover.
Oh, I moved.
You moved.
We have a motion, mover, okay.
Second. There you go.
I know, I'm not used to
Okay,
that.
Yeah.
I'm used to
passes.
punching.
Oh.
Okay. Now we move on to 1.2B.
No. Now we have to approve the consent
Oh, I'm
As
sorry.
amended.
as amended.
Approve the consent calendar as amended. A motion by,
Second.
we have a motion second. Okay. Passes
Now we
4-0.
Now we go to the.
Now we're gonna go to 1.2D. Mr. Zuber.
My only question about 1.2D is the items on the invoice seem to be tied to projects. So are we paying that, or is that part of fees or development agreement income?
Currently, we are paying that. We're looking to bring a policy to council for that element of the stormwater inspections for post-construction standards. So right now, we are paying for that.
Okay. What's my next one?
1.2E.
Yep.
Are these costs covered by the grant?
Yes.
Okay, so they're not our problem.
No.
Okay.
1.2G.
And G, same question.
Yeah. These are.
These are inspection fees, so they are covered by fees that are charged to developers or builders.
Correct.
Okay.
1.2D. No, excuse me, 1.3D.
1.3D. Gotta find it first. I'm doing D, and then
3D,
he's doing.
and I'm doing E.
D as in
He's doing
Delta.
F and G.
F and G. He's doing D. Phase 2, MS4.
Well, this sort of builds to 1.2D, because this agreement is with WGR, and it seems to me that every other meeting, WGR is on here with fees and now this agreement. Are we ever going to get to the point where our stormwater program is done?
It's a constant, I guess, battle, so to speak, as far as the requirements that are set forth in our general permit for the stormwater. What WGR did for years one through 3 was basically kind of set up a lot of the policies that we have to move forward with. Years 4 and 5 moving forward are implementation of those policies. But throughout the year, there's different tasks, ongoing tasks that are implemented through years 1 through 3 that are it's an ongoing responsibility by the city to be.
So when we
remain
get to
compliant.
year 5, we start all over again because it's a new permit cycle?
Yeah, typically the state comes out with a new permit every 5 years. That's their goal. If they don't come out with a new permit in that 5th year, we're still obligated to meet the requirements of the previous 5 years. And every 5 years, it's more stringent. There's more reporting, more monitoring. Yeah.
At this point, that's all on us.
Correct. Yeah, there's no outside funding for this. It's all umbrellaed under the Clean Water Act. So right now, yeah, we have no funds for this.
Okay,
Unfunded mandate.
thank you.
And it's not going to end.
Okay. I wanted to pull 1.3F, which is donation of downtown decorative lights, and I wanted to pull 1.3G, donation of 3 automatic external defibrillators for 2 reasons. One is I want to thank both of you, I'll just do it together, each one of you for what you've done, and by donating this, I know I appreciate it, I know the rest of the council and everybody appreciates it. But with that, I want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to say anything. Tamara, Dennis, did you want to get them saying about the lights and the defibrillators?
I need to say my name and all that.
I think you do for the record.
Okay, so Tamara Spade with the Ripon Chamber Foundation and 929 West Main Street here in Ripon. The lights that we have are in the process of putting up, but we've already put up lights from Stockton to Acacia, and then we are getting funding to finish the rest, which would go from Acacia all the way to Wilma. And so all the light poles that you see out there will have decorative lights on it and a plaque at the bottom for the people that have helped fund this project. So we're very excited about it. It definitely adds atmosphere to downtown and brightens it up and encourages people to come down, and especially in the evening. And so we're very excited and appreciate everybody's contribution to this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamara. Tamara, Daniel has a question, I think, for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, well, one, say they look really nice, what you've done so far, and 2, ask, are you guys still looking for more donations from people?
We do. I think we have 16 left to still fulfill. The other nice thing about those is the lights are supposed to last at least 5 years, but we have enough money to maintain those for a while. And then during holiday season, we can change those lights in and out, so we can also do some decorative things during the holidays.
Can we pick our light
yes.
pole?
Huh?
Can we pick our light pole?
Actually, you can. Yes. So you just have to let me know what corner you want to be on.
Unless Mona's already picked it, right? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tamara.
Dennis Bitters, Fire Chief, Ripon Fire District. I just wanted to give you a few facts about sudden cardiac arrest and why we're doing what we're doing. Sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA, is the leading cause of death in the United States. It takes over 300,000 lives a year as a single cause. It doesn't matter what your race, gender, age is. It happens all across the board. To survive, the survival rate for a sudden cardiac arrest is less than 5%. This is due primarily to the lack of the availability of an automatic external defibrillator. If an SCA victim receives defibrillation with an AED within the first 5 minutes, the survival rate is 90%. So for every minute that passes without defibrillation, survival rate decreases by 7 to 10%. And 30 to 50% of SCA victims would survive if AEDs were within 5 minutes, located within 5 minutes. So the fire district, a few years back, established a community AED fund, and we run it through our 501c3 with the goal of purchasing AEDs and putting them in the community, spreading them out through the community in accessible locations, and then eventually getting to where maybe through some of the technology we could have an app that people would be able to know where they are. So we've been working on that. The economy, when the economy kind of turned a few years back, it slowed down the donation process. And then about that time, one of the things that was a real challenge was that people didn't want to take on the responsibility of having one because of the maintenance and upkeep and training and everything, because you do have to have a program. So we stepped in and said, look, we'll run the program. We'll spot them, we'll maintain them, we'll provide the training, we'll do everything except the monthly checks, which basically you walk up to it and look at it and make sure the light says okay. So we've done that, and then along with some of the changes that have happened in recent laws with protections for Good Samaritans and some of the requirements, it's made it very easy for people to now have them. And we thought, what other town would be better than Ripon to have a proliferation of these devices? So To that end, we have worked with some donors and using some of our monies that we have in our memorial fund, along with donated funds that continue to come in, and we'll support the program. We'll buy the AEDs and we'll put them in the high-risk places. So we have placed one at the senior center, one at the library, and now we'd like to place one at the community center. And we've worked with staff and talked about a suitable location. We thought probably behind the bar area would be a good place. We'll provide the AED, we'll provide the cabinet, and the cabinet that goes there will actually be an alarmed cabinet, so if anybody opens it, it'll scream at them. So that way it will hopefully stop, any revelers from misusing. But anyway, to that end, we just wanted to come down tonight and kind of tell you about what we're doing, and hopefully encourage people to support the program so as we can continue to put them throughout our community, and hopefully save some lives. We have them, I think we gave the police department their first one, and I think, Steve, how many do you have now? How many? I can't see that far. How many fingers am I holding up? So they have 4 now, and part of we'd like to do is get more of those out there. Get one in every police car. Get one in everywhere that it can be used. So we can save lives with them. We've seen them work already. I'm sure that Steve can attest. We actually have a number. I have to look and see what the number is. We probably have close to 18 or 19 field saves that are directly attributable to AEDs. So they're valuable, and with that, we brought one here tonight, and this is the one that's going to the community center. We'd like to just try it out on you, Mike.
Yep.
Actually, we thought if we could, we would like to have a picture. Maybe Tamara and Harrison could present it to you on behalf of the city, and get a picture of that. And then the only thing we're asking is that we could put a sticker on the cabinet that says how it was made possible through donated funds, and hopefully encourage people that maybe they may see that and say, we'll support that, sure, because we want to keep doing it. So,
Well, thanks, Chief, and thank you, your board, too.
Test it.
we'll leave it here, and you can play with it, and then I'm good right now.
I'm gonna go ahead and get out of this picture. Oh. Yeah. Be sitting in the background. There you go. I already photobombed Denim today, so I don't think I need to photobomb Mike. No.
I'll get you the camera.
I'm glad they kept it locked up. So again, thank you. So with that, we'll take all these at one time for approval.
I'll move to approve 1.2D, E, G, and 1.3D, F, and G.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. And I don't see our... Oh, there's a manual vote? Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. You have the motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We do that all the time. It's
Okay, so now we go to 2, well, I'll wait till you get me there, 2A. Ordinance amends Title 16, Chapter 16.12, etc. Drive-through services and parameters of such in the neighborhood commercial. So who's, Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, fellow council members. This is tonight actually is the second reading and adoption of the ordinance. We've gone through this a couple times. It's actually providing some parameters and provisions for allowing drive-through services in the C1, which is the neighborhood commercial district. kind of limits the impact of some of these drive-throughs, so they can't be like a fast food chain, but does allow for such use. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? I don't have any notes.
I don't have any questions for Ken, but how do we get the backup stuff on our screen?
Oh, go to A, B, C, and D.
I don't have an A, B, C, and D.
So you got it. You
Click on
probably have to.
ordinance.
Yeah, you
Oh,
probably
it
have to.
did. That's what I got that.
There you go. Oh.
Where did I hear that before? Yeah, I only do this once a month.
I know.
Another training.
My brain doesn't
Tricia, do you
retain
just want to
things
sit
like
behind him, and then we'll get you a desk back here?
Okay, remember, we got to make Dean proud. Any questions on
That's
2A?
right.
No questions on 2A, so do we?
A motion?
We need a motion to approve?
Is
Or
this,
Motion we
so,
approve.
Second
okay.
reading and adopt the ordinance.
Okay.
No, no.
Somebody, anybody.
Yeah, no, I made a motion, so.
Okay, we have a motion by Jake.
I'll second
We have a second by Daniel. And this I know we need to vote on when the little
We could
vote
do it verbally
turns
and be
color.
done with it.
Yeah. Okay. I did. Already
You
did.
did, it's already been moved and
It's
seconded.
been moved and seconded.
Not on our screen.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye.
Let's move on.
Wait, hold on.
He can't do them. No.
What? My vote's grayed
He
out.
doesn't have that.
I have the one that says vote, but nobody voted yet on this.
No, his grayed out.
No.
This
Okay, I'm starting it.
Show vote. Okay, now we can vote.
Jake moved.
Jake moved. We need a second. We have a second. Passes 4-0. Okay. whew. 2B, first reading and introduction of the fees for use of city facilities.
I'll take that one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'm glad we have a paper version of it in front of you, so I don't have to try to wrestle with the technology like the rest of you. Yeah. So the ordinance that's in front of you, first of all, establishes the authority of the city council by resolution to set fees for the use of city facilities. We've listed some of them, but we can add others as needed in the future. The second part of the ordinance calls for the establishment of a schedule of fees to be maintained and periodically updated. The third section of the ordinance calls for, recognizes certain exemptions from fees and partial fee waivers. So first of all, governmental entities that use the council chambers during normal business hours, that's status quo. We don't charge them, and so that this would continue that practice. Secondly, the Chamber of Commerce can continue to use their fee exemption for the Almond Blossom Festival, the 4th of July event, and the annual hot air balloon event. Third, any recognized nonprofit, and again, this is reflective of current situation, any recognized nonprofit organization which prior to the effective date of this chapter has already been granted a partial fee waiver can continue to utilize their partial fee waiver notwithstanding this chapter. That's recognized Ripon nonprofits that are on our list that meet our criteria are entitled to use of the community center or Stouffer Hall for half price. So this ordinance wouldn't, one time, so this ordinance would not change that, it would remain the same. In addition, city staff can allow additional Ripon-based nonprofit entities that same partial fee waiver that the nonprofits currently enjoy, provided they meet the criteria that are listed in the ordinance here. One, more than half of their members reside within the city limits. Two, the entity is recognized as a nonprofit entity under the Internal Revenue Code, so they have the appropriate clearances and nonprofit status. Third, their primary purpose is to provide services and resources that benefit Ripon residents. And fourth, they've been operating, conducting regular meetings within the city of Ripon. Now, with those exemptions in place, it's not a major change from what we have now. The meat of the ordinance really is section 040, and that says that from and after the effective date of this ordinance, unless expressly provided in this chapter, neither city staff nor the city council shall have the authority to waive, reduce, or grant exemptions from any fee under this chapter. This was, of course, the genesis of this ordinance was council wanting to make sure they didn't get hit willy-nilly, or staff didn't get hit randomly with requests for fee waivers or exemptions. So that's the purpose of the ordinance. Happy to explain it, happy to make revisions as the council sees fit, but it's here for your consideration. and for first reading and introduction.
Okay, questions? Leo?
I just want to make sure, I'm fine with this, but once this is in place, it means that if any other activity were to be created in somebody's mind that involves the use of a park, Midland Sports Park, or anything else, and they want to come in and get a fee waiver, the only way that's going to happen is to take 3 months to revise this ordinance.
That's correct. It's just an example, kind of a real-life example. For many years, my wife and I have hosted the Westmont College Ultimate Frisbee team, which competes in an Ultimate Frisbee competition out at the sports park, not every year, but almost every year. They called and wanted to stay, we host them, but they said, we'd sure like to work with the organizers of this to try to get a break on the entry fees in this thing, but they say that the city's charges are what they are. Is there any way we can waive those? Since we know you, the city attorney, and I said, first of all, you know how little power I have, number one. But number two, there's, they can't waive the fees without council action. But that's an example of people who would come in and would not be able to qualify under the ordinance. Council has to be comfortable with that.
Right. Jake?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, probably about 95% of this I agree with. However, I just want to point out that by boxing ourselves in, this is a small enough town that at some point in time, there is going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on this council, and there's going to be a perfectly legitimate, thank you very much, reason to waive these fees. And this council is going to receive a lot of flack because at the end of the day, this is a small town. And I think one of the things that makes this small town so great is because while you do have rules, you also have judgment too. And you recognize that certain situations are going to be different than every other situation out there. And if we go through with this, I think this is one of those situations where maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 2 years from now, but it is going to be a situation where it comes back to hamstring us. So I just want to make that clear.
Leo?
I respectfully disagree, rather strongly. What this is going to induce and require is a change in the thinking of the community. Now it's a last-minute thing, and if you happen to know one of the 5 people on the council, you can talk to them. And if that council member happens to agree with what you're doing, it gets put on the agenda. But if you don't know one of the councilmen, nothing happens. Perfect example, I've mentioned before, 2 funerals on the same day. One paid, one didn't. That's not right, because it was only because of one was known, the other one wasn't. In my experience, in my former life, where this type of thing was in place, the school board actually appreciated the fact that it was there because they could say, this is the way it is. And if you want it to change, then bring it in and we will look at the policy rather than who you are or what the circumstances are, which is the way it ought to be. It will take time, and there will always be people who want to put one of us in a box. This is going to give you a tool to get yourself out of the box.
And I agree with Leo. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, okay. What it does is it puts structure to it is what it does. And I think we need some structure to this, and it does help staff and council out. But the question I have, which I think Leo may have answered it with his comment. So 5.52.04 says that, and except especially provided in this chapter, neither the staff nor city council can waive these. So if somebody decides to put this on and there's 3 votes, it has to go through and change the ordinance before it can happen, correct?
Right.
Otherwise, whoever wants to do it can pay it themselves. These costs aren't that expensive. So So, now that's good. So it goes through a 90-day process, which provides structure. We're growing, and I appreciate what Jake is saying, but it does provide some structure, because, a lot of things, several things we do is kind of willy-nilly. And so I think I'm glad it was brought up by Councilman Zuber, and I think it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. Daniel?
Yeah, I just had to say, I mean, if we're looking for guidance, I would have to tend to agree with Leo on this one too. I understand the, compassionate component of it, and realizing that there are situations where you may, it may be the right thing to do, but in order to provide the, again, structure and ability to not put everybody else in a tough spot too, I think it's probably the right direction to go. So, thanks.
Okay, so this is the first reading and introduction of the ordinance. Do we have a motion to? Oh,
So moved.
crap. Moved by Leo.
Oh,
Hit mover. Somebody hit shaker.
yeah, okay.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, and so we have a 3-1 vote. The ordinance passes. 2C, first reading and introduction. Ordinance amends Chapter 8.28 entitled Massages and Massage Business. Is that?
So be
Or
me,
standing
Mr.
in chief? Oh, no.
I got this one, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you. As you know, we adopted the massage ordinance some time ago, and we have tweaked it a few times by adding a few things as we're going through it. Because of some activities in the past here, we did provide, this amendment does provide a little more, protection and such as we have these businesses come into town, that would give us the ability to monitor them and have a little more structure in enforcing if there is activities that are not supposed to be occurring at these places. But in essence, the amendment that's in front of you tonight would require a use permit for a business whose sole purpose or primary focus of business was massage. So there's some definitions in the ordinance there in the amendment that define what the primary focus is. It's a business that has 60% of its business is derived from performing massage, and then the other language in there is just the addition of the use permits for that. And then the table you see in the chart just shows that the use permit is required in all the zones that it's allowed in. So that's the kind of the gist of the amendment this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? Leo?
I have one question. Section 8.28.050, Section B, Part 2, exempts several classes of businesses which may have massage as part of their operation. And I'm assuming, and I think it even says it, but is not the major part of the business. I guess my question is, the massage parlor has to get a use permit and all that sort of thing. What kind of control are we going to exercise on the rest of them to make sure that one of them doesn't do something they're not supposed to do, since they don't have to come in and get a use permit?
Yeah, so the use permit really is something that's kind of overarching of the entire establishment. So when the business primary focus is massage is why the use permit would be required. The other businesses, which are traditionally associated with massage, like chiropractor's office, doctor's office, some beauty salons have a massage person there, but their primary focus is not massage. They still have to comply with all the regulations within the massage ordinance. They have to have certified massage technicians there. They have to post the license for the massage practitioner. They also have to, as an owner of these businesses, have to come in and get a massage business permit from the city. So they still have to go through those. We still do checks on all those businesses, just like we do any of them, whether they're 100% massage business or some of these are ancillary uses. So that's they would still have to comply. It's just the businesses that are solely massage is the ones that we would want to make sure we take a little bit closer look at, just because of some of the past activities that have occurred.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ken. I don't see anybody else. So what do? Do you ask them for tax returns to take a look and see if their gross income is, I mean, what if their tax returns don't split out how the gross revenue is generated?
It would be a couple ways. You can do it by cash returns, or it's in the definition there. Or the kind of the amount of employees. So if there's, say, 10 employees and 6 of them are doing massage at a business, that would be 60% of the business would be derived from massage. In theory. So
Okay, so there's no real finite way of determining that. Okay. So you don't look at financial statements and tax returns. You look at the makeup of the business? I mean, is this going to be burdensome on you to have to do that?
They already have to fill out a permit. Obviously, a business comes
All right.
into town, so they have to fill out a permit, and it goes through a process with the police department and background checks. So, I mean, that would be just part of that application process. We do already kind of research a lot of that anyway, so it's just an additional step on that.
Okay. So, Jake, do you have anything to say on this one? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ken.
We need
So,
a motion
looking for a
to-
motion.
So we're looking to waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance this evening.
So moved.
Second.
So, Leo,
You gotta
move.
click the button there, Leo.
Oh, gosh.
We're even nice enough to let you be the
I would
official
do it
mover
for
of
you,
the
but I
record.
can't.
I know. And
Okay, Leo moved, second.
I need a big cheat sheet up here to keep me
Okay, we have a 4-0
Tap the green button.
adopted. Okay, 2D, ordinance of City of Council of the City of Ripon, adding chapter 9.38, urinating and defecating in public places
Yes.
to the Ripon Municipal.
Jake's been waiting all night.
I know, I know. He's gonna have to change his note. Lieutenant, are you, Tom?
Okay, I would just introduce the staff report into the record from the chief, who's not here tonight, and answer any questions you have about the staff report or the draft ordinance. It's pretty straightforward in its application, and it's the background has been explained as we've, police department is increasingly getting calls for service and complaints on this particular issue, mainly in the areas of the Jacktone interchange, downtown alleyways, commercial trash bin enclosures, and the side of the road. So there's a fairly significant increase in these incidents, and so felt it was need to regulate this and through an ordinance. So the ordinance, as I said, is very short and straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, it's here for first reading and introduction.
I do have a question. So it's legal now to do that? I mean, I agree with the ordinance, but it seems like it'd be illegal anyway.
Yeah, the difficulty is absent a city ordinance. There's not much we can do at a city level to take care of it. We can refer these to the district attorney's office, but in many cases, they don't get prosecuted. So we needed to have something at a local level that we could use as a tool for prosecution.
Amazing. Thank you. Leo?
I have one. This says that it can be, I think this is the one, it can be charged as a
It's a misdemeanor.
misdemeanor.
But
But there's
maybe-
nothing in there about what the penalty will be if you're convicted.
Yeah, the misdemeanor provision, the misdemeanor penalties are set forth elsewhere in the code, chapter, I think it's 1.08, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So there's already a,
So there is a thing in
we
place
can-
about what you're up against if you get
Right.
convicted.
We can
Okay.
also we can also charge them as infractions if we decide to, just depending on the circumstances and whether the court's got time to hear it as a misdemeanor. So we'll just give ourselves a wide variety of options for prosecution.
$100 and clean up your mess.
It
Daniel?
just bothers me that you even have to have this
I know.
ordinance.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I guess, I mean, I agree with the ordinance, but how often, do we get a complaint and there not be someone around to catch them? Or what's the rate you actually catch people in the act, per se?
We get a lot of reports of public urination, mostly around our drinking establishments downtown, the truck stops, the parks, various places, along the sides of the roads when people stop and decide they have to go. Many times, we're what we call UTL, unable to locate. Some people we do locate. Kind of to go back to a previous question, there's no specific state law for urinating in public. There's public drunkenness, there's disorderly conduct, there's a public nuisance, there's a lewd or lascivious act. It's up to the patrolman to try and kind of use one of those the best they can. What this will give us the ability to is to target specifically urinating or defecating in public. But many times, you're right, they're gone already. But if we find them and they're in the act, right now you say to yourself, well, is that actually a lewd act? They're facing away from other people. They're not running down the street doing this. So it doesn't meet that one. Okay. Are they technically unable to care for themselves? That would be a drunk in public. Well, no, they can technically care for themselves. They just had a few too many. So this will help us.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, so we need to vote.
Let's make a motion.
Jake made a motion, I need a second.
Sure.
And we're waiting for one council member. Still waiting, okay, there we go. And it passes 4-0. Resolutions, 3A. This resolution adopts the City of Ripon Economic Development Incentive Program.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I will take that one. It's probably not as exciting as the last ordinance you just went through, but the last couple council meetings, we've been going through some economic development incentive program items, and last month we had a draft in front of the council for some discussion. At that meeting, we did receive a little bit of feedback from the council requesting a few minor adjustments to it, which we did take a stab at doing. So basically, some of the items I think that the council was interested in is not necessarily exempting businesses in town wanting to relocate and maybe expand. So we did provide an ability for a business that would like to relocate to a parcel that's undeveloped in town where they would be paying development fees, an ability to offset those development fees by getting a sales tax rebate or so on any of the extra sales tax that they would produce at the new location. Because the thought process is they're already producing sales tax, the city's already used to having that sales tax, so any increase in sales tax would be a 50-50 split. They would get 50% of that back for a period of 5 years. That would help, obviously, hopefully offset a little bit of the fees on that. The other, I think, item that was brought up by Councilmember DeGraff was possibly doing an incentive program for businesses that would want to relocate off of Main Street that would be businesses that don't necessarily belong there anymore, or there's better opportunities for businesses on Main Street. I think, obviously, this program can't cover all aspects of it, and if they are a sales tax producing business that's wanting to relocate, they could obviously fall into this category, but I think that we'd have to look at on a project by project basis for something that's maybe not a sales tax generating business, and how we might be able to help out with some of that move. So it's not necessarily in the incentive program for that, but those were the kind of the changes that were put into the program that's in front of you tonight. So hopefully you've had a chance to review it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a couple. I don't see. Oh, yes, I do. Hold on. Jake.
So, Ken, I think you've done a great job putting this thing together, and it's been a long time coming. I think ever since I've been on the council, this is something that I've talked to you a lot about, and I've talked to Kevin a lot about, and I think this is fantastic that we're actually going forward and we're implementing some type of program to attract businesses from out of town and also provide businesses opportunities here in town that want to relocate and are growing and expanding to keep them here. I think this is a great step forward, and I think this is going to be a tool that we're going to be able to use for the upcoming future to help Ripon grow and grow responsibly, to where we're not just always focused on residential development, that we're providing ourselves a tool to go out there and attract businesses, so that way we can grow the way we want to, and we're able to maintain city service levels at the rate and the reason why people move to town. So I think this is fantastic. So thank you very much.
Okay. You're done. Did you have any, Leo?
I think Jake covered it.
I have a couple questions, Ken, if I can, just for clarification. So it's based on point of sale. I mean, it's honestly, because I don't know how this works. So sometimes when you order on the internet, so what if we have a business in town that does a lot of sales on the internet? How would we collect that sales tax, and would that?
Well, and that's what point of sales, so the point of sales would have to be City of Ripon. So there's some businesses where they do, if they are doing internet ordering, the point of sales would be the City of Ripon. So the City of Ripon will get the sales tax on that.
Right.
Obviously, it goes to the state and then trickles back down to us, but that's kind of the clarification there, that the point of sales has to be within city limits.
Okay. Then this second question I had was, let me get there, on, let me click around here and find out what I was doing. On 5B, relocating of existing business must be relocating to an undeveloped site. Expanding business may be eligible. So what if we have a business that's going to be moving and expanding, but what we're suggesting here is they have to build a new building?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to wrap some parameters around this in a sense that, you don't necessarily want to get into a small business locating from one little spot to another and saying, okay, and then having staff have to track that type of level of business. So we're really looking to develop sites here in town, undeveloped sites, and expand businesses onto some undeveloped sites.
Okay, and I understand that. What I was thinking of in terms of, let's say somebody built a nice commercial building, and we have a business that wants to move to that new commercial building. That's now a developed site, but they're moving and expanding into that developed site.
Obviously, if they're working with the developer when they're doing that, I mean, the developer could, on their behalf, apply for this as well. But if the building's a shell building and sitting there, then it really wouldn't fall within this program at that point.
Yeah.
The purpose of this program is to try to get businesses to come to Ripon to expand the commercial, I don't know what you call it, infrastructure, A business that comes to town and moves into an existing building does not incur the same costs of moving that a business that would come to town that has to build its own building, correct?
Right.
In my mind, that's what this program is for, is to help defray some of those upfront costs. I don't think we should be giving that benefit to somebody that isn't incurring the costs.
Right. So basically, what the city, I mean, obviously an undeveloped site, they're paying development fees to the city for developing on that site. Somebody could move into a building, and then their moving expenses or expenses that if we were doing sales tax rebates would be for them covering, moving costs or something like that. We're really looking to defray some of the city costs for startup.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I get it. Just that I do a lot of traveling, and I see a little business that all of a sudden explodes and goes from a 2,000 square foot building to a 100,000 square foot building almost overnight because of the way the business has grown. And you're saying we could look at that. I just don't want to discourage something like that on our part, because that would bring in a lot of potential revenue. I just wanted to bring it up. That's fine. I'm okay with it, but I just wanted to bring it up. Anything else? Okay, so we are looking for,
I'll move to adopt the resolution,
that's what we're looking for.
except I don't have mover in front of me.
We already took it
yes.
from
Oh.
you, sorry.
Yeah, we already.
Waiting on Leo.
Way ahead of you.
Waiting on Leo.
That's why I don't like this sneaking around on a computer screen.
Help him out, Jake.
It's not sneaking around.
I'll get it.
All right.
Just hit the green button.
Green, yes,
We're
and
going to have a workshop on this. I can tell already.
there's going to only be 2 attendees, the trainer and trainee. Okay, passes
Be the
4.
only one there.
4. God, I don't even know where we are anymore. Okay, let's see.
3B.
Yeah, I know, I got it. 3B, resolution adopts the City of Ripon annexation policies and procedures.
Thank you, Mr.
Who's
Vice
that?
Mayor. I'll take that one
Okay.
again. As we've been kind of working through this one as well, along with the Economic Development Incentive Program. So at the last City Council meeting, we presented a few documents to facilitate, I think, City Council's desire regarding growth policies to guide future development for our city. As you recall, there are essentially 2 policy changes being recommended tonight in order to guide Ripon's future growth. The first item that was being considered was amending the City of Ripon's general plan, land use and growth accommodation chapter of the city's general plan. The general plan land use chapter includes language and policies that establish land use, growth accommodation, and community design goals, policies, and actions to give direction to development within the city. This chapter provides the central, obviously, policy background on which to base all land use decision making in the city, including the rate at which the city desires to grow. So right now in the general plan, we have a growth policy in there where we would annex enough residentially zoned land within the city to maintain a growth rate of anywhere between 3 and 6%. I think the council has some desires to kind of put a cap more on that and define that range a little bit better. The process, obviously, for amending the general plan it's about a 90-day process. So upon direction from the City Council this evening, after we hear your thoughts and desires about kind of the percentage that you would like to see with the city, staff will start the general plan amendment process for the amendment to the land use and growth accommodation chapter of the general plan. And then the second item being considered tonight is and proposed is adopting annexation policies. This is an action item tonight for that part of it. We went through kind of the policies and procedures for an annexation policy at our last meeting. I think the only item in there that the council had some discussion on or concern was actually where to set a percentage rate. We did talk about possibly just doing a hard fixed cap on permits versus a percentage rate. I think, at least what I think I heard from council was there was not a huge difference in that number, although that number does get bigger as the population goes up, but it doesn't grow that fast. So we did provide some language in here. There's several options to choose from. They're all centered around using a percentage rate instead of a hard cap on permits. So, and this is the same language that would be part of the general plan amendment that would go into the general plan as well. So, kind of your options here, I'll go through option 1, 2, and 3. They're really the same. It's just a different percentage. The options would be to the annual residential growth rate shall not exceed 3% of the total residential dwelling units within the city limits per year. I think you guys did voiced some desires of trying to get rid of years where these things were carried over and you had spikes in growth in any given year. So permits will be allocated at a rate not to exceed 2.5% per year through annexation agreements, development agreements, or conditions of approval for projects. The extra 0.5%, staff is looking to use those as a buffer in order to avoid years where building permits are carried over, potentially forcing the growth rate to exceed 3% in any given year. So, just for example, we allocate permits typically through development agreements, and a lot of times developments get postponed or whatever in starting construction, and maybe they don't pull their permits in a given year. So instead of being able just to carry those over to the next year and add them to them, where we might see some of those spikes, staff is proposing that if they don't use them that year, they could apply for some of those buffer permits the next year. We would have a number there that they could apply for. Which we would try to bring some policies back to the council on how that procedure would work as far as applying for those buffer permits, because you could have several developments vying for a number of permits there. So we would have a process that the council could look at for that. However, that we couldn't allocate in any given year any more permits than would allow for a 3%. So 3% would be the max cap in a given year. So the option 1 is 3%. Option 2 would be a max cap of 2.5%, only allocating 2%, obviously, and keeping that 0.5% buffer. And then option 3 would be to not allow growth to exceed 2%. So it's just a 0.5% difference in those. I did put in the staff report what, just for numbers' sake, what numbers of permits would be in today's. If you took 3% in today's, it would result in about 165 building permits if you had a 3% cap. It would be about 137 permits if you had a 2.5% cap, and it would be 109 permits if you had a 2% cap. And then just there's a population chart that was included in the staff report there, just for your information. And it's a 3% growth. If we were to grow at 3% every year, in the year 2040, we would have a population of about 32,000. If we were to grow at 2.5% every year, we would be about 28,500. And if we were to grow at 2% every year, we would be about 25,000. Now, we're probably not going to hit that cap every year. So, I mean, these are just numbers assuming that you did that growth every year. So, that's kind of the gist of the staff report this evening, and I'd be happy to step you through any questions or concerns you have on some of these options, or if there's another desire to move forward with. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. No?
I'm good with 3% and 2.5%.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say? Hold on. Oh, we do. Oh, Mr. Daniel DeGraff, Councilman DeGraff.
And, let's see. Policy 8A originally, the original reading had the second sentence, at its discretion, the city council will annually review. Are we removing that, or is that just not included in the new policy 8A?
So policy A8 we would remove that. At the discretion of the city council would annually review and just have it set so it's a 3% cap. This is something I think we can do is staff could bring back on a yearly basis at the end of the year what permits we've been issuing that year and what kind of percentage rate that looks like for the city, because obviously this is a resolution adopting the annexation policies, and you can always kind of revisit that. It would require a general plan amendment to kind of ratchet that down if the council decided to ratchet it down or up in the future. But this is something we can look at every year just to give you guys a benchmark of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think that's a good idea.
Keep in mind, you have probably 6 recessions or 5 recessions within your period there too, so I don't think we'd ever see the cap. But, we talk about wanting great services for our residents and things, and a lot of it comes with some growth. So, nice job on this. Thanks. Anybody else? Seeing nobody to speak. So then, resolution adopts City of Ripon annexation policy and procedures. Do we have a motion?
So I would like you to choose whichever option you'd want on that. I think I heard Councilman Zuber voice that, but you can include that in the motion.
You gonna do it? No, you can't.
I'll move that we adopt the proposal with a 3% cap and a 2.5% allocation.
And I'll second that.
Motion second. We have a move by Leo.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get up there.
We're not going to do it. We'll wait for you, Leo.
There you go. Okay.
There we go.
Waiting for Jake. Okay. Passes 4-0. Thank you. Discussion 4A, groundwater report, staff report on local groundwater conditions. Ted.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Staff was asked to update the City Council on the status of the city groundwater. The Public Works, part of our normal maintenance and monitoring of our wells, take weekly samples of groundwater levels. And in that process, we've been collecting data for over 10 years. We even have some data that goes back further. We'd have to go into the archives. But before you tonight is a graph that gives that 10-year data set, starting in 2007 with a 30.8 foot to groundwater. That's measured from the top of the casing to the water level itself, and this is at static or non-pumping levels. Notice a general decrease in levels, and then in 2013 we had the groundwater went from when the drought started, the groundwater went from 34.8 feet to 38.2 feet, which is a 3.6 foot decrease. The overall decrease for the 10 years was 7.4. It appears that things have settled down, leveled off. With the drought, it's actually, and we'll know a little bit more as the year goes by, but it's maybe even a slight increase in our water levels. We're hoping that, we believe that with the increased rain and snowfall and river levels, that we'll see an increase in the water table. This will be one of those things we're going to need to monitor. So the staff will continue to monitor on a weekly basis and bring any changes back to the city council in the future. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Daniel?
Just out of curiosity, how many locations are we measuring that at, and what's their proximity to the river? If you have that.
Bear with me here. We have eight wells that are being monitored. Majority of them are away from the river, which would influence the static water table. But majority of them are far enough away from the river. There's nothing real close to the river.
And are they monitoring wells or are they production wells?
They're production wells.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So is the number on your graph an average?
It's an average of all the wells at static.
Okay. I just find it interesting that in the 4 years when we had a drought, the level didn't change. I mean, it went down initially, but then once it got there, when we started trying to save water, it must have worked because it didn't get any worse.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I think that had a big influence on the groundwater. But it's my understanding the whole valley has experienced the same decrease in water levels, throughout the.
I'm going to be interested to see how it looks a year from now. Yeah, but I'm glad you did this, because this at least gives us ammunition when somebody says the drought's over. Why are you still keeping us at 3 days? Until I see anything better, there's no reason not to change as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you look at long term too, it was 8 feet over 10 years.
Yeah, we've lost 8 feet
lot,
over 10
right.
years.
Right. So,
And from a technical standpoint, the drought's over. That doesn't mean things are getting better.
No. The
I agree.
based on reservoir levels is about it.
Right.
Exactly.
We don't know about groundwater level.
Exactly.
For a year.
Right.
And all the
That's
water
a
going
20-year
down.
problem.
Anything else? Thanks,
Thank
Ted.
you.
Thank you, Ted. That was very good. 4B, consider enforcement options for illegal dumping of solid waste. Can we just, never mind.
Different topic.
Oh,
Different topic.
who's taking that? Anybody? Want to jump up and kind of take it over? Just talk about it. Let us know when you guys are ready.
Yeah, when you're ready. We're cool.
Who's taking this?
Group tonight.
Our normal leader's not here.
Yeah, I mean, Dean's not here to
It's
keep you
the
in.
technology that's got us rattled. Let's
I
just
know.
Exactly.
I know. So, as you know, the current municipal code does regulate solid waste disposal requirements and addresses unlawful deposit, burning, and burying of garbage and rubbish, and with the city to provides the city with tools to cite this misdemeanor. But there is no definition of illegal dumping in the code, and so staff felt that the regulations need to be clarified to include a clear prohibition on illegal dumping, and couple that with clear and effective enforcement remedies. So, among other things, there would need to be a fine schedule to create a real financial disincentive for people to illegally dispose of waste. So the city currently has the ability to enforce under the penal code, and that the difficulty with that is that, again, as we found with the last item, with limited resources, the district attorney has a tough time taking a lot of these cases all the way through. And so the current means of enforcement are difficult and ineffective, quite honestly. So other cities have adopted ordinance that allow for the impoundment of nuisance vehicles used for illegal dumping, But the bottom line is, we felt that there needed to be more clarity on this, and we could address some of those issues in a new ordinance. But we don't have an ordinance for tonight. We're just here for discussion purposes, and be happy to take council input on this. I know there's pros and cons. If you have a local ordinance, you have to go out and try to enforce it. There would be some costs associated with that. Our ability to recoup those costs, would be dependent on us having a pretty good defense for the amount of the fine, typically based on the amount of staff time and resources necessary to bring about compliance. But overall, from a staff standpoint, if we want to have an effective means of combating illegal dumping in town, we probably do need to have a local ordinance, much like we did on the previous item with urination and defecation. So it's here for council discussion.
Mr. Zoo, you found where the button was, huh?
Meeting's almost over, but I think I got it. I want to sort of comment on your last thing. I think it is important, if we're going to get serious about this, that we have a fine structure that helps us cover the cost. That's going to be the biggest thing, is if the police department and public works come in here and say, we need people to do this. Because it's silly to have a bunch of rules and then we can't do anything about it. And so whatever we can do to, and I realize there's a point of diminishing returns too, because you can tell somebody they're going to owe us $1 gazillion and they say, fine, lock me up, because you're never going to see it. But I also think letting them off with a $50 fine isn't going to do us any good either. So I'm for pushing to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, we talked about that as well. We would need to have a fine structure that is tethered to some sort of an analysis, and we've fortunately, with my office handling a lot of these infractions in the court systems over the last several years, we do have a pretty good tool in place to average estimated time that we have to spend on these versus staff time, and could put together something that hopefully would educate the court when my staff is down there in court trying to prosecute one of these, that this number is based on something real, and it isn't just a wish list of what the council wants. Otherwise, what happens, the judges are likely to just reduce or eliminate the penalties and just, let them go based on.
Don't do that again.
Based on the old slap of the wrist. Yeah. So, if we do an ordinance and if we do a fine schedule, we'd have to have some sort of analysis of that. Much like we do for a lot of the work we do here, building inspection, plan check. We have to tie it to actual staff time and data.
I appreciate you bringing this up. To me, it's more of a disincentive thing. I hope we never collect the fine. It's more of if the fine's high enough for somebody to do it, they may just not do it. Whereas now they're doing it. I understand that a lot of it got, I think, probably solved through our new spring cleanup. But this, again, it's like the urination thing. Why do you have to have these? Well, I think it makes sense. But I think the fines could be as high as we can get them to make sense. But the other question I had, and again, I'm not sure this is where it belongs, but I want to bring it up because that was some of the notes that I wrote down, was what I got through our spring cleaning program before we changed it, and I don't know if it'll change much, but I got as much complaints about dumping as I did about people stealing off the stacks. People were saying, I got people driving up and down my street going through everybody's stuff, and they made them feel pretty uncomfortable that people were looking around, and I know that people had some stuff stolen out of their garage because of that. Is there a way that we can incorporate dumping or stealing? Isn't that stealing even if it's sitting on a street? Or is that thievery if you catch it in their car and they're driving away? All right.
That's tough. Most of the stuff people throw out, they consider garbage. They don't consider it valued property. What we got a lot of was people from out of town were coming in, loading up trucks, that kind of thing, and they would trade. Oh, this is a better chair. So then they dump that chair in that pile. Then the person's upset because, well, that wasn't my chair originally. It was a great program, and it had all the right intentions, but for us in the police department, it was a nightmare because you got people trolling up and down the streets all night long looking for property. And we have some anecdotal evidence that people were turning around and then selling it at yard sales, that kind of thing, or swap meets. So for us, it's a problem. But to try and arrest that person for taking this broken chair from this pile and taking it to another pile, we're going to get zero prosecution on that. Because most of the
Again-
people that are putting that stuff out, to them, it's garbage.
To me, it's more a disincentive if people don't just come and start stealing stuff. I mean,
Right.
maybe you can't do anything about it, but
You can sure try.
Well, but I think the new plan is going to help with some of that.
Yes.
Well, I think so,
Because
too.
before, the stuff was out for a week.
Right.
Now,
That's right.
if they do it right, it's out for
24
9 hours.
Yeah.
About, you know, so if
Okay,
somebody
so we're fine.
better know what they're doing, they're going to have to get in and get out in a hurry.
Yeah. We'll see how it works out. Yeah, that's fine. Jake?
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think it's going to be a combination of both. One, it's going to be reduced amount of items out in front, and when you do see vehicles, because they're pretty easy to spot driving up and down the road, you know, it gives the police department and, you know, an extra means to make contact with individuals and find out, you know, what exactly is going on with them. So I think both tackling the problem from both angles is going to really make a difference. So I think we'll see a dramatic increase or a dramatic improvement come next time this year.
This may be a little off the subject. Have we started implementing the new program?
Yes, and it's been very successful so far. We've been out four different times picking up piles. We're getting lots of people interested. It's working out real well with the 4 items because we can pick them up in a half a day with up to 35. We're up to 35 folks pickups, and we haven't had any real issues with illegal dumping as of yet.
So they're calling in, scheduling the days and all that stuff?
It's working out very smooth.
Well, so we made a good decision. 1 year is good.
I'll take it.
I can add to that. We don't have any reports of any illegal dumping, and we've seen no problems
Good.
with this new program.
Good.
So, I mean, it's early, but that's still a good sign.
But it's still a good sign, though. Okay, so do you have your guidance of what we need to do then? Or?
We'll bring back an ordinance.
Okay. Okay, thank you. 4C, I know that's Kevin. That one I know.
Dan, do you mind putting up the PowerPoint? Just a couple. Perfect, thank you. There's just 2 items I wanted to go over with the City Council tonight. One of them is the fiscal year 16-17 General Fund Financial Report. This is a similar graph as you've seen in years past. The left vertical axis of the graph is the monthly revenue and expenses, and then the right side of the graph, the vertical line there, refers to the general fund balance and how it changes over the year. So what I really wanted to talk about were just the 2 blue lines. The light blue line is the general fund balance from last fiscal year, 15-16, and the dark blue line is where we're at to date, this current fiscal year through March. A couple of things I just wanted to point out. At the start of the year, we started off in a very positive situation. It's because the San Joaquin County overpaid us for our motor vehicle in lieu, or mistakenly paid us too much. So over time, that they are adjusting our future payments to account for that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that as of March, we are about $300,000 ahead of where we were last fiscal year. And then lastly, obviously, in last fiscal year, we ended up with about a $900,000 surplus. So we're projecting to end up pretty close to the same for this fiscal year. Keep in mind, similar to what we talked about in 15-16, there is a number of one-time revenue sources that we have been seeing. One of them is the triple flip is done, and with that, they did a true-up. So we received about $325,000 from the true-up payment, closing out the triple flip. And then this also includes receiving or expecting to receive about $520,000 from development-related fees to our general fund. The other thing that is part of this and part of the surplus is we are still receiving the $250,000 administrative fee for administering the closeout of the redevelopment agency. So just wanted to point that out, but it does look like a very similar year as what we saw last year.
Have they given you any ideas to when that will be done, the administrative fee?
You know, in our projections right now, we are expecting that not to completely go away, but to be reduced. I think we're assuming $70,000, and that's starting not next fiscal year, but the fiscal year after that, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think it's July of 2018.
July of 2018. Okay.
Yep. So if there's no questions about this, I'll go to the second part that I wanted to talk to the City Council about. Dan, do you mind switching the? So obviously with the budget, there are a number of inputs and control that we talk about with the budget. One of the items of that's an extremely important item that's going to have an effect on not necessarily this budget, but upcoming budgets is the expenses related to retirement. So I wanted to spend some time before we had our more formal workshop or the workshops we've had in the past, which I'm planning to do at the end of this month, is to talk about it. And as you may know, we have 2 retirement plans. We have what we call a defined benefit, and that's a plan that identifies the benefit that is payable at retirement. Typically, it's by a formula based off the rate of pay and how many years of service that you have. And then right now that is provided to our sworn police department employees. All other employees, they receive a defined contribution, and that is very similar to a 401k. We actually call it, I think, a 401a is the correct term. But what dictates how much is available at the end of an employee's time with the city is what the city actually put in there and what the employee put in, and that's what they walk away with, is that amount of money.
Kevin, can I ask you a quick question? So under a defined benefit plan, do we have anybody under PEPRA? So do we have one tier or do we have several tiers?
Can we go to the next slide?
Oh, sorry, okay.
So we have 3 tiers,
Okay.
And you can see the benefit to each of those tiers. The tier 3 is the PEPRA that changed a few years ago, and it's a very much different plan than a tier 1. And then to the right there, you see the number of employees in there. Over time, we're slowly starting to get more and more employees in that plan. One of the challenges, though, is it does not change the unfunded liability with the Tier 1 plan. And right now, with the total amount of compensation, the employer compensation we're paying with the Tier 1s, you can see for 17-18, we're expecting about $570,000. About half of that is unfunded liabilities. I won't go through every number. You kind of see what it is, but far to the right is how much per employee each of those costs us, and that's really where a lot of that difference is. Below that is the defined contribution, so there's 53 employees that participate in that. The city provides a contribution of 15% as a base contribution, and they match an employee up to 6.6%. So the total employer contribution is between 15 to 18.3%, and then that equates to about $12,000 per employee is what we're expecting for 17-18. So that just kind of gives you a feel of the different retirements and even the different plans within those benefits. So one of the things that is changing right now, you may have heard CalPERS talking about it, is discount rate. And that's related to the performance of their investments. So what CalPERS has been assuming for a number of years now, or since my time here, is assuming that they're going to receive 7.5% return on their investments. They haven't been there. I know a couple of years ago they were less than 1%. Most recently, I'm not sure.
2.4.
2.4. I know there's been reports to them, and their actuarial folks are telling them you can't even assume you're going to get 6% in the next 10 years, let alone 7.5%. So what happens, though, while they're receiving a percentage, a return much less than what they're assuming, is growing the unfunded liability in these plans, which is essentially sooner or later you're going to have to pay for that, and that amount is going up. So what CalPERS provided the city is a model that we were able to plug in our numbers and project out what our CalPERS rates are going to be until 2022, 23. The change in discount rate is going to be phased in over 3 years. It's starting in fiscal year 18-19, and it'll be fully phased in 3 years after that.
So what's the discount rate?
It's going to go to 7. It's going to go to 7%.
At the end, or it's going to go to 7 and move down from there?
It's at 7.5% right now.
7.5. Okay.
And then over 3 years, they're going to phase it into 7%.
Just down to 7?
Just to 7.
Look what that does.
No, I know what it does. We're dealing with under the retirement board. It's hundreds of millions of dollars for
Right.
us.
So,
Huge.
but that's what I wanted to share with council is what does 0.5%? What is this doing to us? I think it's, and you're exactly right. The future adjustments of those discount rates, I would assume, is going to be very likely. But
So when you talk to the experts, the stock guys will tell you they'll maybe, if you're lucky, get you 4%. The bond guys tell you they'll get you 3% over the next 7 to 10 years. Well, 50%, that's 3.5%. Why is everybody at 7? Corporate America, that still has defined benefit plans, are using 2.4%.
Right.
As their actuarial number, not 7, 6.5.
In our pooled program for our liability, we're assuming 2% also.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the big difference is corporate America doesn't answer to their employees. We do. That's the difference.
Well, they do answer
This is
their
a political
employees.
decision.
No,
Right.
you're absolutely 100% correct.
Right.
Well, it's a financial. If they raise that, if they dropped it down to 5% today, we'd be broke. We wouldn't be able to fund it.
Right. Just looking at these numbers, well, I have the percent changes and the total cost changes, but when I look at these numbers, I look at us with 23 of our employees that are within this program. You know, the cities that have 100% of their employees within this program, I'm guessing once you get to, you know, the third year, second year of implementing this, they're going to have some real challenges and some real, you know, back to kind of recession and cuts and, you know, how do you afford? Because, like I said, this is one that you really don't have control over. Your control is to buy out of it, and I don't think anyone has that kind of money. But
Expensive.
You have no control. This is what you're left with. So I thought, you know, ahead of some of the other budget discussions, I did want to spend some time really kind of going through this. And so just so you can see the percentages on here for the Tier 1 employees, which is the blue lines, and the solid blue line you see on there is what we've been paying through 17, 18, and then when it continues on to the right is what we're projected to pay with the changes with the discount rate going to 7%. The dash line on there is what we would have paid if they would have left it at 7.5%. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing I would point out on there is the decline that you see in fiscal year 18-19. We got pushed, all cities that were less than 100 employees got pushed into a pooled program. When they pushed you into that program, they took a look at the assets that were set aside for you and the amount of your unfunded liability. And they used a formula to figure out how much you had to pay in over a period of time to that, they call it a side fund. We finished our last payment there in 18-19. That's why it goes down, is because of that. So I just wanted to point that out. But the change in the discount rate for Tier 1 results in about a 10% change in the employer contribution that we pay to CalPERS. So essentially goes from a little over 40% to a little over 50% of the employee's salary paid to CalPERS. For Tier 2 and the Tier 3 shown there at the bottom, it's about a 5% change in the employer share. So the total cost, you can see for Tier 2 and Tier 3, just because we don't have that many employees in there, is not substantial. For the Tier 1 employees, once the discount rate is fully implemented in the third year, it's about an extra $150,000 that is going into, that the employer is responsible to pay into CalPERS. When we ran these numbers and we plugged these numbers into the CalPERS model, we did not assume any additional salary increases beyond what's already provided for in the current MOU, which expires after this next fiscal year. So it assumes that those stay the same. It just assumes those stays the same. So this is really just the function of the change of the discount rate. It doesn't take into account salary changes. So that's really what I had with this item. It was just an opportunity to make sure we're all on the same page. you can see on here, it's not necessarily this coming up budget where we're really going to have to deal with this. It's really just something to keep in mind as we're looking what's happening with this budget and projecting out expecting $150,000 increase in the PERS payment.
Well, and keep in mind, because I deal with it at the county level, if they're projecting 7% and they get 3% for the next 3 or 4 years, not only is there unfunded liabilities, but they can come back to the cities and every entity and say, you know what, your contribution may be 40%, we're raising it to 60. Good luck. Figure out how you're going to raise it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. It's got to happen. Because you heard what happened to Loyalton. Loyalton couldn't afford their bill, and their employees, the retired people, had their salaries cut almost, their retirement cut almost in half.
Well, but what Loyalton found out is after PERS did that, they told the employees they would make good on the difference. They're saving money. So it might turn out that that's exactly what cities will do. They'll say, fine, we're not going to give you any more money. And then PERS will look at what they paid and say, well, then all your retirees, instead of getting this amount, you're only going to get this amount. And if Loyalty, it's a very small sample, but if their example is any proof, the city could come back and say, fine, we'll be good on the retirement. We're not sending it to you, we're sending it to them and save money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, personally, I think this is long overdue for PERS. I think they should have started this process a long time ago.
But it's political, exactly what it is.
It's political.
Absolutely.
And these are people's retirement. This is what they count on. When they signed up to serve, their community, this is what they were expecting. This is what they're counting on. It's a very difficult position to put them in that they put such a risk into the program.
That's what people were told for 30 years.
The other factor that's now in here, going to be a couple more court cases that got to go.
Yep.
But the last two decisions have said you can change this, and you can also change the benefit you give the people who are retired.
Yes.
If that holds up, there are going to be a lot of city council places in this state that are going to be jam-packed month after month, because that is going to be literally what cities and counties are going to look like. We either go bankrupt or we do some of these things, and the employees are the ones that are going to pay for it.
And one of the things they found out that nobody really knew is that everybody assumed defined benefit plans were guaranteed forever. And they found out very quickly, bankruptcy can wipe these things out entirely. So, I always caution, we have it at the transit. We went to a defined contribution plan for the non-vested, non-represented employees, because if it gets bad enough, you can't afford it, everybody takes a cut. So, and I think our people are very good. The entities that I see that push for more and more, and politically, if they keep giving them more because they want to get reelected or get something like that, it's over. It's just over.
Right. And you have to be very aware of this. Like I said, this is not going to affect this coming up year's budget. This is 3 years out, 3 to 4 years out when you're really dealing with this problem. So that was the intent of bringing it to council tonight, to at least start that conversation, make sure we're all kind of talking about the same thing and understanding the difference with the different retirement packages.
But I'm just saying it could get worse in the next 4 years, not necessarily better.
And you're exactly right. And you have to do something, though. 7% is not a reasonable number. You have to do something. How you get there, I mean, there's a lot of work to do in that. But you're exactly right. This is a 0.5%. It could be much different than this over time. Thank you.
So what's the good news? Okay, so thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. Reports. Mr. Steve.
We'd like to report that the pickup program is doing well, that the downtown lighting will help us enforce the urination policy. That we appreciate that. Everything else is going well. Thanks.
Well, we'll put in a good word for the chief that you did a good job for us. Thank you.
A little more excitement.
Ted, anything?
Yes, just one item. Our water reduction for last month was 45.7%. So we're still heading the right direction.
Thanks, Ted. Guy? Okay.
Nothing to report.
James?
Nothing to report.
Council? Okay. Did you want to say anything about DC? No?
I was leaving it up to you.
No, I was leaving it up to you.
Okay.
You're going to break Dean's heart.
To report for
30 seconds.
It was a good trip, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect when I left, but there's a lot of really good information. I think some of the meetings that we had, what I heard, is they're going through a process to get to some of the infrastructure discussions. They want to take care of healthcare first, talk about tax reform, and then they were going to get to infrastructure. I think one of the things that I heard a lot in the meetings was talking about different ways of financing infrastructure. Administration is really looking to do public-private partnerships, and I think some of the messages in the meetings I was in, we talked about that's great for San Francisco and LA and some of these big cities to have a revenue stream that supports a partnership like that. For communities like Ripon, that's not necessarily the case. You still need to provide some just grant funding to support some of these good regional projects. So that part was good. We had a really good meeting with Bureau of Reclamation, good meeting with EPA, talking about our stormwater project, or I'm sorry, our surface water project. And I think lastly, just the impression I got with the new administration, real positive discussions that are happening. It seemed like administration is working with both sides, pretty bipartisan support they're trying to get with what they're trying to do. So to me, it was a very positive trip.
I'll add just two things if I can. So one is, when you watch the news, you see this side here and this side here. When you get back there, it's not that bad. I mean, people get along. But what was really interesting is I sat through some meetings that people said, we don't even know who to contact in the administration. It's really confusing. You sit in the next meeting and people go, we know, God, it's going to go great. We got our contacts in place. I think there's so much confusion back there still that nothing's going to get done for us.
It's still a lot of appointments need to be made.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Jake?
Nothing to report?
Nothing? Leo?
Nothing.
Daniel?
Just as usual, thank you to the members of the public for being here, sticking through all this. Both of you, and the others that were here earlier.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything from you all? No? Okay. So with that, what do we need to do now? So the meeting's adjourned, and I'm going to open up the successor agency agenda. Do we have to go to that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, we have to vote.
Okay, so what do we need to do?
Sign back in.
So hit the gavel on the left-hand side.
Hit the
of
gavel?
screen. The electronic gavel.
Okay.
It says close.
All of us?
Yes, yes.
Are you reading from a script?
No.
Okay.
And then you
put
put your password
username.
in, but wait for Tricia to start the digital boardroom of the successor agency, and then you'll automatically connect.
Well, I didn't connect.
Give me one moment here.
There's no connection could be made.
Correct.
Yep.
One second.
Patience.
Oh, so we got a slacker over there?
I gotta wait for the old system here.
Talk about power. Look at this.
I know. So do we have to wait till the city council says successor agency?
Yes. Un momento.
Can we take roll call and stuff in the meantime?
Here.
Okay, President.
Sure.
Okay.
Director
Public
Daniel
discussion.
DeGraff,
Here. Wait.
Jake Parks,
Present.
Leo Zuber,
Here.
Vice Chairman Michael Restusha,
Present.
Chairman Dean Euchre.
Okay, we can connect now.
Okay.
Can we connect now?
Yeah.
Connect.
Public discussion, anybody in the audience that wants to talk about anything that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, approval of the minutes of the successor agency of January 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, wait, don't we have to
Oh,
go?
do we have to do this with my votes? Huh?
It's manual.
Manual. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Hold on.
Wait a second.
What? We just passed it. It's done, it's history. Okay,
Vote on the approval of the minutes.
okay.
I thought we just did.
Yeah, we did, but we gotta do it again. Okay.
Our vice mayor doesn't have any authority.
I don't- Waiting for Leo.
Imagine.
I'm just reading what it says here.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Wow.
Passes 4-0. Phew, that was a tough one. Approval of the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'm not the mover. I'm not, there you go.
Just hit yes.
Yeah, but I gotta get a mover.
Okay,
a
passes
second.
4-0. That's the end of the consent calendar. Meeting adjourned.
That's gotta be a record. And it would have been faster if we hadn't had technology.
I agree. Okay, do we hit close again? Do we hit close to shut this thing down?
Yeah, hit exit.
I hit close.
Where's close?
Okay, but how come it didn't, oh, then hit exit?
I thought we wanted this technology to be more efficient. Yeah.
You know what I like about it, though? You write all your notes in here.
Yep, and they save it for you.